Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're strapping in, getting ready for a deep dive into Space Doctrine Publication 50.
SDP 50, yeah.
Yes, SDP 50 for short.
There you go.
Which is, well, it's basically the Space Force's playbook
Yeah.
for how to plan for and win conflicts in space.
How to be victorious, that's right. How to win.
Yeah.
And really, it's all about how the Space Force is going to make sure that we can operate freely in space and deter aggression up there.
Right.
And then, of course, if we have to, defend the United States.
Of course, yeah.
Defend our allies and defend our interests.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of having a Space Force.
That's right.
But seriously, this document really lays the groundwork
It does.
for how the Space Force plans to operate in space.
Yeah.
And space is nuts.
It is a rapidly evolving domain.
It really is.
It changes all the time.
Yeah. And so let's talk about, why does this document, why is it important?
Yeah.
Why does SDP 50 matter? Yeah.
Why does it matter? Well, I think it all comes down to this. Space is a part of everything we do now.
Right.
Our communication, navigation, intelligence gathering, it all relies on what we do in space.
Right.
And SDP 50 recognizes that, and it really emphasizes that space is, it's not separate anymore. It's not like the separate battlefield.
Right.
It is a part of every military operation.
So it's like that whole thing, right, of there's no more home front.
That's right.
Everybody's involved in this.
That's right. It's all connected.
Okay, so it's recognizing that space is a part of modern warfare.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for the people on the ground?
Yeah.
What does that mean for Guardians?
Well, it means that protecting our assets in space, it might actually involve us taking action here.
Okay.
On the ground, at sea, or even in cyberspace, right?
Yep.
It's about bringing all of that together.
So even if you're working on a computer somewhere,
Yeah.
you're still contributing to that.
That's right. You're a part of the space mission.
That's actually really cool.
It is. It is.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's really bringing all that together.
So that leads us into the first principles
Yes.
outlined in SDP 50, which are objective focused planning, integrated planning,
Yes.
and mission command.
Okay.
Those all seem pretty straightforward,
Yeah, they sound pretty simple.
but I'm sure there's more to them than meets the eye.
There is a lot more to it, yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. These principles are really the foundation for how we do everything in space.
Oh,
how
hey.
you plan for space, yeah.
Okay.
So let's take, for example, objective-focused planning.
Okay.
It's not enough to just follow orders.
Right.
You really have to understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay.
And how does it all connect to the big picture,
Oh, okay.
the big strategic picture, yeah.
So it's instead of just going through the motions, you have to think critically.
Be a thinker. Yeah, exactly.
About what you're doing.
Critical thinking is so important, yeah.
Okay.
Especially in the space domain.
Okay.
And then we've got integrated planning.
Okay.
And as we've been talking about, space operations, they don't happen in a vacuum,
Right.
right? You might be working with the Army, the Navy, the Air Force,
Right.
international partners, maybe even civilian agencies, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot of people to keep track of.
It's a lot of different folks, a lot of moving parts,
Yeah.
and they all have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So communication and coordination are absolutely critical.
Yeah.
We've got to break down those walls between us, build relationships,
Right.
make sure that everybody understands what's going on.
It's like a team sport,
It is.
right? Everybody's got to be working together.
Everybody has to know their role, what they bring to the team.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And then finally, we've got mission command.
Okay.
And, in the space domain, things can change really quickly. And
Right.
so we've got to be able to adapt.
Okay.
And that's what mission command is all about.
Okay.
It's about empowering those closest to the problem to make decisions quickly.
Okay. So instead of waiting for someone to clear it all the way up,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
you get to be all right, we're going with this.
You've got the information. You're closest to the problem. Make a decision.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We trust our guardians to make the right call.
So that's where that understanding of the bigger picture
Yes.
really comes into play.
It all ties together.
Right.
It does. It all ties together.
Because if you don't know,
Right.
what you're actually trying to accomplish.
You can't make those good decisions
Right.
if you don't know what the goal is. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So it all works together.
So speaking of evolving and things changing quickly,
Yeah.
SDP 50 doesn't shy away
No, it doesn't.
from the challenges
Yeah.
of space.
It's a challenging place to be.
Right.
It is very challenging.
It's big and it's cold and there's a lot going on.
A lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
A lot of things we can't predict.
Yeah.
And SDP 50 really digs into all of that.
Okay.
It talks about how we need to really understand the space domain, like all of it,
Okay.
from the ground stations that we rely on all the way out to, the nature of space itself,
Oh, wow.
the environment up there.
Okay, so it's not just like knowing where our stuff is. It's like understanding how it all interacts.
How it all works together,
Yeah.
and how those interactions can be, messed with
Oh.
by our adversaries.
Right.
They're looking for ways to take advantage of those things.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's like playing chess.
It is like chess.
They have a huge scale.
On a cosmic scale. That's
Yeah,
right. That's right. You've got to be thinking several moves ahead.
Yeah, because if you don't know what the other guy's thinking,
Yeah, you're going to be in trouble.
you're going to get your clock clean. You're going to be playing checkers, and they're playing chess.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to be in that situation.
So how do you balance that, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got to be innovative.
Yes.
You've got to take risks.
You got to take risks, absolutely.
But then also, you don't want to, break something.
That's right. You're playing for keeps up here.
Right.
These are high stakes.
Yeah.
The things we do in space are vital to our national security.
Right.
So we can't just be, flippant about it.
Right.
We've got to be very careful. But at the same time, we've got to be bold.
So how do you, balance that?
Well, that's where SDP 50, it gives us this framework
Okay.
for managing risk.
Okay. So, understanding what the risks are.
Understanding the risks, understanding the consequences,
Right.
weighing those against the potential benefits.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then making an informed decision.
So it's not about, just avoiding risk altogether.
No, because you can't do that. You can't live your life in fear of what might happen.
Right.
You've got to act.
You've got to do something.
You've got to do something, right? But you've got to do it smartly.
Right. You got to be smart about it.
Exactly.
Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I guess, the other thing that keeps coming up
Yes.
is this idea that, space isn't, a vacuum.
It's not a vacuum, literally or figuratively.
Right.
I mean,
It's not separate
that's right.
from everything else.
It's connected to everything.
Yeah.
What happens in space affects what happens here on Earth
Right.
and vice versa.
Okay.
So we've got to be thinking about that all the time.
So, what we do on Earth
Yeah.
can affect, the satellites and stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all matters.
So it's about seeing those connections.
Yes.
And, planning for them.
Planning for them, understanding the connections.
Right.
And that's where, this idea of multi-domain operations comes in.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
Because we've used that term, a couple of times.
Yeah, it's a popular term these days.
Right. So what does that actually mean, multi-domain operations?
So basically it means recognizing that the best way to achieve our goals in space
Yeah.
might actually involve things that we do here,
Okay.
down on Earth, in the air, on the sea, in cyberspace, right?
Okay.
It's about bringing all those things together.
So, instead of thinking of space as, its own separate thing,
Right, it's not separate.
we have to think about how it interacts with
Everything else,
everything else.
it's all connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as guardians, we got to be thinking about all those things,
Yeah.
all those different domains and how they work together.
So, I don't know, I'm picturing, someone who's, working on the, computers and stuff.
Okay.
They have to understand how that's going to affect
That's right.
the
The satellites, yeah.
Yeah.
The people on the ground,
Yeah.
it all matters.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but our guardians are up to the challenge.
I mean, I heard so.
I think so.
That's a lot to keep in mind.
It is a lot of information, but that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
We're having this discussion, right?
Okay, so yeah, we've established that space is a very complex place.
This is a very complex domain, yeah.
Very high stakes.
High stakes, for sure.
And you've got to be thinking about all these different things.
All the different pieces of the puzzle, yeah.
So how does SDP 50 actually how does it help people navigate that
Right.
and plan?
Well, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Okay.
This is where the theory becomes practice.
Okay.
SDP 50 lays out this framework
Okay.
called the Space Planning Process,
Okay.
or SPP for short.
Okay, the SPP. That sounds very official.
It is pretty official.
Right.
But it's also designed to be flexible
Okay.
and adaptable.
Okay, so it's not just
It's not just a dusty binder on a shelf somewhere.
right.
It's a living document.
Okay.
It's something that we use every day.
So walk me through it.
Okay.
What are the steps involved?
So the SPP, it's a cycle, right?
Okay.
It's a continuous cycle that takes us through every stage of planning.
Okay.
From the very beginning when we first get our orders, all the way to the end when we're actually carrying out the mission.
So it's a cycle because, like, space is always changing.
Space is always changing, exactly.
Okay, so you have to, like, constantly be reassessing.
Constantly reassessing, reevaluating, adapting. That's right.
Okay, so what are the steps in the cycle?
Okay, so first we've got planning initiation.
Planning initiation. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Right. This is where you get your marching orders.
Okay.
Higher headquarters is going to tell you what they want you to do,
Okay.
what the mission is, what the goals are,
Oh.
and what you need to keep in mind.
Okay, so you're not just, like, starting from scratch.
No.
You're given, like, a set of guidelines.
That's right. You've got a framework to work with.
Okay.
And that guidance, it usually comes in the form of a plan or an order from, somebody higher up the chain.
Right. Makes sense.
From there, you move on to mission analysis.
Mission analysis. Okay, so this is where we, like, really dig into the details.
That's right. We're going to break out the magnifying glass.
Okay.
And we're going to figure out exactly what we're dealing with here.
Okay.
What are the tasks involved? What does the environment look like? What challenges might we face?
So, like, what are the things that could go wrong?
What could go wrong exactly? What are the risks?
What are the, like, the threats?
What are the threats exactly?
Yeah.
What are our adversaries' capabilities? We've got to consider all of that.
And this is also where, like, that whole joint thing comes into play, right?
Absolutely. We got to think about how space fits into the bigger picture.
Right.
How does it support the other domains? And that's what those joint functions are all about.
Okay.
So we're looking at the mission through that lens.
Okay, so I'm a guardian. I've got my orders. I've analyzed the situation.
Right.
I've got my little magnifying glass.
Oh.
What's next?
Now it's time to start brainstorming solutions.
Okay.
We've got to figure out how we're going to accomplish this mission.
Okay.
And that's what we call course of action development.
Okay.
Or COA development for short.
COA development.
COA development,
Right.
yeah. And we usually come up with a few different options.
Okay.
A few different COAs, each with its own pros and cons.
So, like, it's kind of like planning a road trip.
I like that analogy.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
Are we going to take the scenic route or are we going to take the highway?
Right.
Each one has its advantages and disadvantages.
Right, exactly. And sometimes you got to, like, stop for gas.
Sometimes you got to stop for gas. Exactly.
You can't just, like, go straight through.
That's right. You got to plan for contingencies.
Right,
You
exactly.
got to be prepared for the unexpected.
And so you've got these different options.
We've got our options.
And then how do you, choose?
Well, we got to compare them.
Okay.
We got to weigh the pros and cons, and that's where things like wargaming come in.
Wargaming. Okay, so we're simulating the mission.
We're simulating it. We're trying to anticipate what the enemy might do,
Right.
how they might react to our actions.
Because, as you said, space is unpredictable.
Very unpredictable.
Right. So,
You never know what's going to happen.
you could have a plan and then, that all goes out the window.
That's right.
Right.
You got to be ready to adapt.
So wargaming is about, being prepared for, what could happen.
Exactly. It's about being prepared for the unexpected.
Okay.
And it's about testing our assumptions.
Okay.
We might think we have a great plan,
Right.
but then we wargame it and we realize, oh, wait a minute, there's a flaw here.
Right. You missed something.
We missed something, yeah.
Okay. So wargaming helps us to identify those flaws before they become real problems.
Okay, so let's say you've wargamed it.
Okay.
You've come up with, a few different options.
There are a few different COAs, yeah.
How do you, choose which one to go with?
Well, that's where the commander comes in.
Okay.
We present our findings to the commander.
Okay.
Say, here are the different options, here are the pros and cons of each one,
Right.
and here's our recommendation.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's up to the commander to make the final decision.
Right. That makes sense.
So once the commander makes a decision, then we move on to COA approval and plane development.
Okay, so that's where you take, the rough draft
Exactly.
and turn it into, the actual plan.
We're going to flesh it out, add all the details,
Right.
make sure everybody knows what they're doing.
So this is where, you're, really...
It's all about the details.
Yeah.
You got to get the details right.
Okay.
Because if the details are wrong, the whole plan can fall apart.
Right.
So we're talking to the other units, we're coordinating with them, we're making sure everybody's on the same page.
Right. So no room for, improvisation here.
Well, there's always room for improvisation
Okay.
because, like we said, space is unpredictable.
Right.
So you've got to be ready to adapt.
But you want to have, a good
You got to have a solid plan,
Solid plan.
solid foundation to work from.
Okay.
So once the plan is finalized, then we move on to the final step,
Okay.
which is plan review and publication.
Okay, so this is where it gets, like, printed
Well, not necessarily printed.
or, like, you know,
It might be digital.
digital. Yeah.
But the point is it's distributed. Everybody who needs to know gets a copy of the plan,
Okay.
and we review it one last time
Okay.
just to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Right. Like, here's the game plan. Everybody good.
Exactly. All right, let's go.
And then we're ready to execute.
Okay.
But remember, even though this is the final step in the cycle,
Right.
it's not really the end, right? Because it's a cycle.
It's a cycle. Exactly.
Right.
So we're constantly going back, reevaluating, making adjustments as needed.
So it's not like you make the plan and then you just, like, put it in a drawer and forget about it.
No, no, no. This is a living document.
Right.
It's constantly evolving.
Okay, so that's the space planning process in a nutshell.
That's the basic idea. Yeah.
It seems very thorough, but also very flexible.
It has to be both.
Right.
It has to be thorough. We got to think of everything.
Right.
But it also has to be flexible because things change.
Okay, now I want to talk about space domain awareness because it seems like a really important concept for anyone operating in space.
It's absolutely crucial.
Okay.
Space domain awareness, or SDA.
SDA.
Yeah. It's the foundation for everything we do in space.
Okay.
It's how we make sure that we can operate safely and effectively.
All right.
And it's how we protect our interests in space.
Okay, so, like, what does that actually mean?
What does it mean?
Yeah, like, is it just about knowing where our satellites are?
It's more than that, yeah.
Right.
It's about having a complete understanding of everything that's happening in space.
Okay.
It's not just about where things are, it's about what they are and who they belong to.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Tell me more.
All right, so when we talk about what things are,
Yeah.
we're talking about understanding the purpose of every object in space.
Okay.
From satellites to debris to, anything else that's up there.
Yeah.
We need to know what it is, what it does, and how it might affect us.
Okay, so, like, even if it's like a glove
Even a glove, yeah.
that came off of...
Because that glove could damage a satellite.
Oh.
It could cause a lot of problems.
Wow.
So we need to track everything.
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 So it's like having, like, a giant inventory
It is like a giant inventory. Yeah.
of, like, everything that's up there.
That's right.
Whoa, okay.
And then the who is just as important.
Okay.
We need to know who's operating in space,
Go
what
ahead.
their capabilities are, what their intentions are.
Okay.
Are they friendly? Are they a potential adversary?
So this is, a lot of, like, intelligence work.
It's a lot of intelligence work, a lot of analysis.
Yeah.
We've got people working on this all the time.
And it's not, like, a one-time thing.
No, it's ongoing, 24/7.
Right, because things are constantly changing up there.
Constantly changing, yeah.
Right.
New satellites being launched, new technologies being developed.
So you can't just, like, make a list and then, like,
No, the list's never finished.
right.
It's constantly being updated.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so we need to be talking to each other,
absolutely.
sharing information.
Information sharing is critical.
Right,
We
yeah.
can't operate in silos.
Right.
We need to be talking to each other, sharing information, working together,
Okay.
and that includes talking to our international partners.
Okay.
Because they have a role to play in this as well.
Because they have, like, satellites and stuff, too.
They have satellites, they have sensors. Right. They have valuable information that can help us to get a more complete picture of what's happening in space.
Okay, so the more information we share.
The better off we are.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
More information means better decisions,
Okay.
and better decisions mean a safer and more secure space environment for everyone.
Okay, so this is all, like, very connected to that whole multi-domain thing, right?
It's all connected. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because space domain awareness, it's not just about what we can see from space.
Right.
It's about what we can see from down here on Earth as well.
Okay.
We have radars, we have telescopes, we have all sorts of sensors that can give us information about what's happening in space.
So we need people, like, on the ground.
We need
Yeah.
people on the ground
Like, looking at this stuff.
analyzing data, making sense of it all.
Wow. Okay, so it's a real team effort.
It's a huge team effort. It
Yeah.
takes everybody working together to make it happen.
Okay.
And that's what makes it so challenging.
Right.
But also so rewarding because we're all working towards a common goal.
Right. Okay, so what's, like, the main takeaway here?
The main takeaway is that space domain awareness is essential.
Okay.
It's not optional.
Right.
It's something that we have to do if we want to operate safely and effectively in space.
Okay.
And it's something that we're constantly working to improve.
Okay, so we're always getting better at this.
Always getting better, always learning, always adapting.
Okay, so SDA is important.
Critically important.
It's always changing.
It's always changing.
And it requires, like, everybody to be working together.
Everybody's going to be on the same page.
Okay, so anything else that's, like, a key takeaway for SDA?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'd say is that SDA is not just about reacting to things. It's about anticipating what's going to happen next.
Okay.
It's about connecting the dots. Right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to see those patterns
Okay.
and identify potential threats before they become real problems.
So, like, if you see, like, I don't know, like, a couple of pieces of space junk
Yeah.
that are, like, getting too close to each other,
Right.
you need to be able to, like, figure out,
Predict where they're going to go.
yeah, if they're gonna
Are they going to hit something?
hit something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's about being proactive,
Okay.
not just reactive.
So it's not just about knowing what's happening right now. It's about, like, forecasting the future.
Exactly. It's about forecasting the future of the space domain and being prepared for whatever might happen.
Okay, so like you said, like playing chess.
Like playing chess, exactly.
You got to be thinking, like, a couple moves ahead.
Always be thinking a few moves ahead. That's right.
Okay.
And that's what SDA helps us to do.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here
We've covered a lot.
about SDP 50.
Core principles, the space planning process,
SDA.
space domain awareness, it's all connected.
It really is.
It all works together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, like, the whole point of, like, a doctrine.
That's right.
No.
It's to bring everything together under one umbrella
Okay.
so that we're all operating from the same playbook.
So as a guardian,
Yeah.
what are the key things to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you have a vital role to play
Okay.
in defending our nation's interests in space.
Okay.
Whether you're working on a satellite
Right.
or you're analyzing data or you're planning missions,
Okay.
you are a critical part of this team.
Okay.
And your actions have real consequences.
Okay.
So we need you to be at your best.
Okay.
We need you to be thinking critically.
Okay.
We need you to be adaptable.
Right.
And we need you to be always learning.
Always learning.
Because the space domain is always changing.
That's right.
And we need to be ready to change with it.
So stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay vigilant.
Stay vigilant.
Keep reaching for the stars.
Keep reaching for the stars.
I love it.
That's it. That's the Space Force motto.
There you go.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive
My pleasure.
into SDP 50.
It's been a great discussion.
Until next time.
Until next time. It's always changing.
And it requires, like, everybody to be working together.
Everybody's got to be on the same page.
Okay, so anything else that's, like, a key takeaway for SDA?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'd say is that SDA is not just about reacting to things.
Okay.
It's about anticipating what's going to happen next.
Oh.
It's about connecting the dots, right?
Okay.
We need to be able to see those patterns
Okay.
and identify potential threats before they become real problems.
So, like, if you see, like, I don't know, like, a couple of pieces of space junk that are, like, getting too close to each other,
Right.
you need to be able to, like, figure out,
Predict where they're going to go.
yeah, if they're
They're
going
going to
to
hit something.
hit something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, fine.
So it's about being proactive. It's not just reactive.
So it's not just about knowing what's happening right now. It's about, like, forecasting the future.
Exactly. It's about forecasting the future of the space domain
Okay.
and being prepared for whatever might happen.
Okay, so, like you said, like playing chess.
Like playing chess, exactly.
You got to be thinking, like, a couple moves ahead.
Always be thinking a few moves ahead, that's right.
Okay.
And that's what SDA helps us to do.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here
We've covered a lot.
about SDP 50.
The core principles, the space planning process,
SDM.
space domain awareness, it's all connected.
It really is.
It all works together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, like, the whole point of, like, a doctrine.
That's right.
Right.
It's to bring everything together
Yeah.
under one umbrella
Okay.
so that we're all operating from the same playbook.
So as a guardian,
Yeah.
what are the key things to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you have a vital role to play In defending our nation's interests in space,
Okay.
whether you're working on a satellite or
Right.
you're analyzing data
Yeah.
or you're planning missions,
Okay.
you are a critical part of this team.
Okay.
And your actions have real consequences.
Okay.
So we need you to be at your best.
Okay.
We need you to be thinking critically.
Okay.
We need you to be adaptable.
Right.
And we need you to be always learning.
Always learning.
Because the space domain is always changing.
That's right.
And we need to be ready to change with it.
So stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay vigilant.
Stay vigilant.
Keep reaching for the stars.
Keep reaching for the stars.
I love it.
That's it. That's the Space Force motto.
There you go.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive
My pleasure.
into SDP 50.
It's been a great discussion.
Until next time.
Until next time.